The notification lit up his phone during lunch, a simple photo of the Eiffel Tower emoji followed by words that would unravel everything: going to Paris with a friend. Don't wait up. He stared at the message from his wife, Claire, reading it 3 times. The phrasing felt practiced, like she'd rehearsed it. Not "I'm going to Paris" or "trip" came up last minute. The specific mention of a friend seemed defensive, unprompted. They'd been married 8 years. He knew her patterns, the way she said actually when lying, how she over-explained simple things when hiding something larger. This text had that quality, that thin veneer of casualness stretched too tight. He didn't respond immediately. Instead, he finished his sandwich at the kitchen table of their suburban home, methodically chewing while his mind worked through possibilities. Paris. 5 days, she'd mentioned last week in passing. A work opportunity. Now it was a friend. The revelation came accidentally that evening while he was looking for a recipe Claire had shared in their family group chat. Scrolling back through messages, he found it, a thread she'd created 2 months ago, forgotten to delete. The group included her sister and someone listed simply as D. In those messages, the casualness was different, intimate. Inside jokes. Planning. Her sister clearly knew about Paris. She'd sent a winking emoji. But it was D's number, visible in the group info, that made everything real. He sat with that phone number for an hour, watching it like it might move. Outside, sprinklers hissed across the neighbor's lawn. Inside, the air conditioning hummed its monotonous rhythm. Everything felt suddenly theatrical, like he was watching his life rather than living it. The question wasn't whether to confront her, that seemed pointless. She'd deny, or worse, she'd confess, and then what? Tears, recriminations, the tedious machinery of marriage counseling or divorce lawyers. All of it felt exhausting before it even began. No, what interested him was something else entirely. Not revenge, exactly. More like curiosity about cause and effect, about what happened when you introduced one small variable into someone else's carefully constructed narrative. He opened a new message to D's number. His thumbs hovered over the keyboard. The temptation was to be dramatic, accusatory. But drama was Claire's domain. He'd always been the steady one, the problem solver, the man who fixed the leaking faucet at 2 a.m. without complaint. So he typed something simple, clinical: "Your wife's medical results are in. Please contact the clinic at your earliest convenience. Reference number, MH2847. The reference number was fake, pulled from the randomness of his mind. But it sounded official. Medical. Urgent without specifying the urgency. He hit send before he could reconsider. Then he made himself a cup of tea, Earl Grey with honey, and sat on the back porch watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and purple. His phone sat silent beside him, screen dark. The waiting had begun. The first sign came at 11 p.m., Claire's phone buzzing repeatedly on her nightstand. She'd already gone to bed, exhausted from packing. He was reading in the living room, a thriller novel he couldn't focus on, when he heard her voice through the bedroom door. What? Slow down. What are you talking about? Her tone had shifted from sleepy to alert in seconds. He heard bare feet on hardwood, then she appeared in the doorway, phone pressed to her ear, face pale in the hallway light. I don't understand. What clinic? What results? She was listening intently, and he could hear a man's voice through the phone, panicked, rapid. Did you call them? Well, call them back. She noticed him watching. For a moment, their eyes met, and he saw something flicker there: guilt, fear, calculation. Then she turned away, retreating to the bedroom and closing the door firmly. He returned to his book, reading the same paragraph 4 times without comprehension. The bedroom stayed silent for 10 minutes before her door opened again. I'm going to make some tea, she announced, not quite looking at him. Want some? I'm fine. In the kitchen, he heard cabinets opening and closing with more force than necessary. The kettle's whistle seemed accusatory. When she returned, cup in hand, she sat on the opposite end of the couch. "Everything okay?" he asked, voice neutral. "Fine. Just. Damien's wife had some medical tests done. He's worried." The name slipped out naturally, Damien. So now he had a full identity. "I told him he's probably overreacting." "Probably," he agreed, turning a page. "You don't even know what it's about." "You're right. I don't." The silence that followed had weight. She sipped her tea, watching him over the rim of her cup. "You've been quiet lately." "Have I?" Distant. He finally looked up from his book. "I've been here. Same as always." "That's what I mean." She set down her cup. "Look, about Paris." "You should go," he interrupted. "You've been looking forward to it." Her relief was visible, though she tried to hide it. "You're sure?" "I know it's short notice." "It's fine. I'll manage." She nodded, but uncertainty lingered in her expression. She'd expected resistance, maybe even hoped for it. His easy acceptance destabilized something. That night, he barely slept. Through the wall, he could hear Claire tossing restlessly. Her phone lit up twice. He saw the glow under the bedroom door. Messages being sent, received, the quiet conspiracy of people trying to manage a crisis. Morning arrived, gray and overcast. Claire was already up, suitcase by the door, makeup carefully applied to hide the shadows under her eyes. She kissed his cheek, a performance of normalcy. "I'll call when I land." "Safe travels." After she left, he poured himself coffee and checked his own phone. Nothing from Dee's number, but that was expected. Medical scares didn't resolve in hours. They festered, demanded attention, inserted themselves into plans. He imagined Damien. He'd assigned the man a face now, composite of every forgettable colleague Claire had mentioned over the years. Probably handsome in a conventional way, charming, good at saying the right things. The kind of man who convinced himself that he loved Claire, that this was somehow romantic rather than tawdry. And Damien's wife, she was the collateral damage, the unknown variable. Was she suspicious already? Had there been signs? Or was this message the first crack in her own carefully maintained reality? His phone buzzed. "Claire, from the airport, boarding soon. Love you." He typed back, "Love you too." The lie felt appropriate somehow. All of this was lies now, layers upon layers. His message to Damien was a lie. Claire's trip was a lie. His acceptance was a lie. They were all performing for each other, and he wondered who would break character first. The first real crack came on day 2. Claire called while he was organizing the garage, a task he'd been postponing for months. Her voice had an unfamiliar edge. "Have you been okay? You sound weird in your texts." "I'm fine. Cleaning." "How's Paris?" We haven't really seen much." Damien's been distracted. There it was again, the name, easier now, like she'd forgotten to maintain the pretense. "His wife won't stop calling." "Medical stuff?" "Yeah. She's freaking out about some test results that apparently don't exist. The clinic has no record of any tests. She called them 4 times yesterday." He made a sympathetic noise. "That's stressful. You have no idea. He's barely present. We went to dinner last night and he checked his phone every 5 minutes." Frustration bled through her words. "I didn't come all this way to..." She stopped abruptly. "To what?" "Nothing. It's just, never mind." But he'd heard it, the resentment of her affair being interrupted by someone else's crisis. The selfishness of it was almost beautiful in its purity. She'd wanted romance, escape, and instead got a distracted companion and a phone that wouldn't stop ringing. "Maybe you should come home," he suggested. "What? No. We're here for 3 more days. if he's not enjoying it. I'm enjoying it, she snapped. I just wish. Look, I have to go. We're meeting friends for lunch. Friends. Plural now. The story kept expanding, requiring more architecture to support it. After she hung up, he watered the garden, methodically moving from plant to plant. The roses needed pruning. The tomatoes were coming in well. Normal things, domestic things. The life he'd built here felt suddenly like a stage set, convincing from certain angles but hollow when you looked too close. His phone buzzed, an unknown number. This is Damien. The voice was tight, controlled. I don't know who you are or what game you're playing, but you've caused my wife significant distress. The clinic has no record of any tests. If you contact me again, I'll involve the police. He should have felt something, guilt, perhaps, or satisfaction. Instead, there was only a mild curiosity about how Damien had gotten his number. Claire must have traced the text somehow, put pieces together. I apologize for the confusion, he replied, keeping his voice professional. There must have been an error with our notification system. Please disregard. An error. Damien's laugh was bitter. My wife has been panicking for 2 days over an error? Medical administration can be complicated. Again, my apologies for any stress this caused. You have no idea what you've. Damien stopped, and in the background, he could hear Claire's voice, distant and urgent. I have to go. The line went dead. He stood in the garden, phone in hand, aware that he'd just crossed some invisible threshold. The message had been abstract before, theoretical. Now it had voices, consequences, the messy reality of other people's pain. That night, Claire didn't call. Her texts were brief, perfunctory. Tired. Long day. Talk tomorrow. He ordered takeout and watched a documentary about deep-sea creatures, beings that lived in permanent darkness, adapted to pressure that would crush surface dwellers. The metaphor wasn't lost on him. Day 3 brought silence. No calls, no texts until evening when Claire sent a single message, coming home tomorrow. Flight at noon. Not 3 more days. Tomorrow. Everything okay, he texted back. Fine. Just ready to be home. He knew what that meant. Paris had failed to deliver whatever promise it had held. The affair, tested by unexpected pressure, had revealed itself as exactly what it was, fragile, contingent, unable to withstand even minor disruption. Claire's flight was delayed by 4 hours due to weather in Frankfurt. He tracked it on his phone from the kitchen table, watching the little airplane icon inch across the Atlantic. She texted only once, delayed. Ugh. He cleaned the house in the meantime, not the cursory tidying they usually did but a deep clean, baseboards scrubbed, windows washed, refrigerator emptied of expired items. The physical labor felt necessary, transformative. He was preparing the space for whatever came next. When she finally arrived home at 9 p.m., her exhaustion was evident. Hair pulled back, no makeup, expensive carry-on dragging behind her. She looked like she'd aged a year in 5 days. Hey, she said, dropping the bag in the entryway. Welcome home. You hungry? Starving. We haven't eaten since breakfast. We. Still plural. He heated up leftover pasta while she showered. When she emerged in sweatpants and an old college t-shirt, she looked more like herself, or perhaps like a version of herself she'd forgotten how to be. They ate in silence for a few minutes before she spoke. Paris was disappointing. How so? She pushed food around her plate. I don't know. It wasn't what I expected. The weather was bad. Everything felt off. And your friend? Her fork stopped. Damien. His name is Damien. Right. Damien. His wife called constantly. Some mix-up with medical results that turned into this huge thing. She convinced herself she was dying or something, completely hysterical. He spent half the trip managing that crisis. Sounds stressful. It was. She met his eyes. I'm sorry I went. I should have stayed here. This was the moment, he realized. The opening where he could detonate everything, reveal what he'd done, watch her face transform from tired to shocked to furious. The truth sat in his throat like a stone. But what would it accomplish? She'd already come home early. The affair had collapsed under its own weight, exposed by a simple text as the fragile fantasy it always was. Damien was likely dealing with his own wreckage now, a wife who'd discovered his unexplained panic, his distraction, the shape of his guilt. I'm glad you're home, he said instead. Relief flooded her expression. Really? Really? She reached across the table, took his hand. Her palm was warm, familiar. I missed you. The lie was gentle, possibly even partly true. She'd missed stability, safety, the life where she wasn't managing secret phones and elaborate stories. She'd missed being able to turn off the performance. I missed you too, he said, and this lie was also gentle, also partly true. He'd missed the version of her who existed before he knew about Damien, before the Eiffel Tower emoji and the casual deception. That night they fell asleep on opposite sides of the bed, not quite touching but no longer at war. In the darkness, he listened to her breathing even out, slide into sleep. His own mind remained active, tracing through the past 5 days like following a map in reverse. The text message had been so small, so simple. Yet it had rippled outward in ways he couldn't have predicted. Damien's wife, panicking over phantom medical results. Damien himself, torn between his affair and his real life. Claire, watching her escape crumble into disappointment and wet Parisian streets. And himself, what had he gained? Not satisfaction, exactly. Not revenge. Perhaps just knowledge. The understanding that sometimes the most powerful move isn't confrontation but simply letting people see what they've built. 3 weeks passed. Life resumed its familiar rhythms, work, dinners, weekend errands. Claire was different in ways she probably didn't notice. More present. She laughed easier, complained less, seemed content with their mundane routines rather than restless within them. Her phone habits had changed too. It stayed on the counter now instead of always in her pocket. She answered his questions about her day with actual details rather than vague pleasantries. The performance had ended, and what remained was something quieter, more honest. He never asked about Damien. Never interrogated her about Paris beyond the surface complaints about weather and disappointments. Some knowledge didn't require confession. But he watched her sometimes, across the dinner table, curled on the couch reading, asleep with one hand tucked under her pillow, and wondered if she knew. If she'd connected the dots between his calm acceptance and the message that shattered her escape. If she suspected and simply chose silence, the same way he had. One evening, her sister visited for wine and conversation. He retreated to his study to give them privacy, but voices carried through the old house's thin walls. So you're really done with it? Her sister's voice, careful and probing. I don't know what you're talking about. Claire's response was automatic but lacked conviction. Paris. The whole thing. A long pause. It was a mistake. The whole thing was stupid from the start. What happened? You were so excited. Nothing happened. That's the point. Nothing ever was going to happen. Claire's voice dropped lower, harder to hear. His wife, there was this medical scare. Except it wasn't real. Someone sent him a fake message about test results. She went crazy thinking she was dying. The whole trip he was managing that crisis. That's bizarre. Who would do that? I don't know. Wrong number maybe. But it made me see how fragile it all was. How easily everything could fall apart. And for what? Bad coffee and a rainy week in Paris with someone else's husband who couldn't stop checking his phone? Do you think she knew? His wife? Maybe. I don't know. Does it matter? Her sister's response was too quiet to hear. After a moment, Claire spoke again, voice clearer, more certain. I'm lucky. That's what I realized. I have something real here, something solid. I almost threw it away for what? Excitement? Romance? It's all just temporary bullshit. He closed his eyes, leaning back in his desk chair. There it was, not confession, but understanding. She'd learned the lesson without knowing who taught it. Later that night, after her sister left, Claire found him on the back porch. The August air was thick with humidity and cricket song. Can I ask you something? She sat beside him on the porch swing. Sure. Did you know? His heart rate didn't change. He'd prepared for this question, though he never expected her to ask it. Know what? About anything. Did you suspect? He considered his answer carefully. The truth would be cathartic, perhaps, but also destructive. It would transform his quiet intervention into an accusation, turn her growing peace into defensive anger. I suspected you weren't happy, he said finally. I suspected we'd drifted. I figured you needed space to figure out what you wanted. And you just let me go. Would stopping you have changed anything? She thought about this. No. Probably not. Then yes. I let you go. She took his hand, lacing her fingers through his. I'm sorry. For being distant. For making you feel like you weren't enough. You're here now. I am. She leaned her head against his shoulder. That message, though. The one to Damien's wife. It's so strange. Such a random coincidence. The universe works in mysterious ways. He felt her smile against his shirt. Does it? Or do people? There it was, the closest they'd come to acknowledging the truth. She knew, or at least suspected. And she was choosing to accept the fiction, the same way he was choosing not to press for confession. Maybe both, he said. They sat in comfortable silence, the porch swing creaking gently. Somewhere in the neighborhood, a dog barked. A car passed on the street, headlights sweeping across the lawn. Normal sounds, ordinary life. Claire squeezed his hand. Thank you. For what? For being patient. For still being here. Where else would I be? She didn't answer, because they both knew there were many elsewheres, divorce lawyers, separate apartments, the painful untangling of 8 years. But those were paths not taken, futures that existed only as ghost possibilities. His phone sat dark and silent in his pocket. Dee's number was still saved there, a reminder of how little it took to change everything. One message. 12 words. A reference number pulled from thin air. He'd never delete it. Not out of vindictiveness, but as evidence of a simple truth, that sometimes the loudest intervention is the quietest one. That silence and timing, wielded carefully, could speak volumes. That the strongest foundations aren't the ones that never crack, they're the ones that crack and still hold.